I just know how this stuff works, right? So,
Governor, school districts across the country are suing the president's administration about a $6 billion funding freeze on educational programs. How does that affect
which
Florida?
programs are they talking about?
Yeah, like
So here's the thing. I think what the administration is doing is they are not going to give funding to school districts that are going to pursue harmful policies and objectives. And so that's something that in Florida, you're required to honor parents' rights. You're required to have the core subjects and live up to our standards. And so I think that's probably what it's going to be. So I don't think there's going to be any issues in Florida for not following the rules of the road. I mean, yeah, we have some school districts that try to go off the reservation because some of the laws that the state has passed they may disagree with, but that's not the way this works, right? The states created the federal government. The states also created school districts and school boards under the Constitution. So when you have state laws, those have to be respected. I think what this is likely happening with the Trump administration, I need more specifics, but I think it's holding like school districts in California accountable because they're trying to do indoctrination, they're trying to do gender ideology, they're trying to do DE&I, and that's the policy of the federal government not to do those things. And so they're free to adopt that, but they can't also get federal funding if they're doing that. And I think that if it's that, I think that's totally appropriate. So we've addressed all those issues many years ago. Now, it's not like everyone's all hunky-dory and they're not all happy about all the things in every little nook and cranny. I mean, I was down in Broward County yesterday. We were announcing a DOGE audit of their county government. They're not necessarily see eye to eye with us. I was in Gainesville, which I remarked, I talk about this guy running for New York City mayor, and it's like, and I was like, come to think of it, he could probably get elected in Gainesville. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? Fine. But, and you can have those, but you have to follow the laws. And so in Florida, we have really unprecedented support for parents to be able to have their rights upheld and to ensure that these school districts are complying with. And look, what we're doing is like what 100% of people agreed education should be not too long ago. I mean, it's more recent that you've seen this massive tangent towards the partisanship and the political. I mean, the National Education Association is the largest teacher union. Go look at the stuff they're putting out on what their unions dedicate to. It's political stuff. It's talking about all these things that are really tangential from, okay, can we have good reading, good math, all that stuff. And I think that's been very harmful for American education. And California is obviously one of the worst offenders. I mean, I remember being out in California. I was doing some events, and I was kind of bemoaning. I'm like, how heartless was it of California to lock these kids out of school, for so long? I mean, you had athletes. We were talking about the other day down at New College. We said sports need to be going. That 2020 season, a lot of those kids, if they were in California, they wouldn't have played at all. I mean, we had people moving here for that, and I was like, oh man. And then they were out for longer than that, and this and that. And I had and most people agree that locking them out like California did was wrong. But some of them are like, well, in some of these school districts, they'd be better off being at home because of how, what they're doing. And I was surprising to hear that, but I think as you look into there, so I think it's probably going to be focused on some of those areas of the country that really want education to be more ideological and partisan. And that's certainly not what we're going to use Florida tax dollars for. And interesting, on higher education too, I think the Trump administration is working hard to, get some of the rot out of higher education, the intellectual rot, the ideological rot. We saw a lot of that at places like Columbia University after the October 7th, 2023 attacks by Hamas in Israel, with how those campuses really erupted and how the administrators let the inmates run the asylum. We saw a lot of bad. Now, people that have followed this knew that there was a lot of rot there, but I think that really brought it to the surface for a lot of people. And so they're working hard to do things. We announced the new accrediting body that we're going to get certified, Florida leading, other states in the Southeast leading to be able to do it, because these accreditors no one, how did they even get there? Like, nobody elects these people, and yet they have an agenda, and they try to do. And our schools have clashed with, the accreditor here in the Southeast. They did try to, the media's like, oh, they didn't adopt DEI. They tried to adopt DEI, and the schools pushed back successfully, but they wanted to do it. So there was a lot of things going on there. But if you look at the news, I think it came out yesterday, University of Florida Hamilton Center, they brought in like all these epic scholars, like people from Harvard and some of these places are leaving there to come to the University of Florida, because what the Hamilton Center is already achieving is, and it's very young, I think the sky's the limit, but it's the premier place for the study of Western society, Western thought, and the principles that underlie the American experiment. And that's a total lost art in so many of these other places around the United States of America, and some of the most historic and august institutions. They've really just turned away from what made this country unique, why Western civilization has had all these successes, and they've adopted some of these insular ideologies. So they can abandon the field. We'll double down on that, and we'll make sure that students that go through, they're going to have an opportunity to get the premier education when it comes to the pillars of Western civilization. It's like our kids are young. They're just finished second, first, and pre-K. You think about where they're going, to college, and I'm just like, I'm like, I am not sending them to Harvard or Yale on this trajectory. I cannot do that. And when I was there, it was crazy, but it's gotten a lot crazier. I can tell you that, way crazier. And so, I'm saying, hey, I'm a Navy guy. What about the Naval Academy? And First Lady doesn't like that as much, not because she's not a big supporter of the military. She just may not want our kids to be, to be in those situations. That's, I think, a mother's instinct on that. And so we'll see. But, we both talked to ourselves. We have so many great options now in Florida. Our kids, I was in Gainesville yesterday and just congratulating the folks there on the basketball national championship. And I had the pleasure of being able to go. It was exciting because it looked like they were going to lose for most of the game. They were 38 minutes, and then the last couple it shifted, and so it was a really, really neat thing. And I said, we're encouraged by the potential for the football season, with Florida. But I said, we've been in Tallahassee since 2019, and so my kids, all they know is FSU. So they are like huge FSU. And that's kind of got known, and then some of my Gator friends would be like, man, why are you pushing them? I was like, trust me, I am not pushing. This is what they've done. So at the beginning of last season, we went to the Florida-Miami game at the Swamp. Our girls were I think they were in UF cheerleader outfits. My son had a Tebow jersey on. We thought, listen, you're going to experience the Swamp. It's special, and maybe, they'll do. And we weren't pushing that either, but we wanted to give them, expose them. And I can tell you, it was a rejection. They're so dyed in the wool with FSU on that. And so, it is. But we think about, look what they're doing at Hamilton. I think to have no tuition increases for Florida residents since I've been governor, $6,300, you can get one of the premier educations. Look what Florida State's done. Look, we overhauled New College down in Sarasota. Some of the parents out there that are concerned about, oh man, some of these universities are too crazy, you should take a trip to New College and what they've done. They've really leaned in on classical liberal arts education. They've recruited huge around the country, great scholars down there. But you pull up to the main, because we did an event there, you pull up there, it's right on the water, just beautiful campus. And I'm thinking to myself, you have some of these places that are really good that I have a high regard for, like a Hillsdale College in Michigan. But, if you're a parent, would you rather be visiting Central Michigan in January, or would you rather be in Sarasota there? And so it's that. So you have that. So you have so many different options, which I think are really good. But part of it, and you even have people now, when I first became governor, if I talked to people from in finance, like New York City, they would never have even thought about Florida for higher ed. It just wasn't on their radar. Now, after all that's happened over these years, they look at what some of those universities up there are doing. They look at what our universities here. There's a huge contrast. And so, like, why would I want to mess with that when I know I can get something good in Florida? And that's a huge, huge success, I think, that a lot of people have really worked hard to do. So that's a lot of information, but just saying that I think what the Trump administration is doing on both K-12 and higher ed is trying to hold the line for sanity and restoring sanity to our education system, because I think if we do that and we focus on the building blocks of what these students need, I think we're going to be much better off, both as a state like we have done, but also as a country. But in the meantime, you can count on us. There's a lot of people that are involved in fighting cancer, particularly pediatric cancer, throughout the state. But just know, in the state of Florida, we're going to be there. We're going to be fighting the fight alongside you, and we're going to do all we can to finally bring this issue to bed once and for all. God bless everybody. Thank you.